I was going to say, I usually like ping on this side and me on the other, but I can flip that real quick by doing this. Hold on. There we go. Now we're in our
You
side
feel more
seat.
comfortable now?
I do.
All right.
We have a side seat. Hey, I was going to ask you, have you ever heard this saying? Because I heard it from the other day, and I would have thought that it was like from a southerner, that it was like from like a northeasterner, like New York, New Jersey, and it goes something like this: I don't want to yuck on anybody's yum.
Did I actually say that saying in one of our previous shows?
Did you?
I think I did because I was watching. Who's that female comedian? The one who does like a lot of the rude jokes.
There's a
She
lot of
has,
them.
yeah, she has a show on E right now. Anyway, I was watching her. She had like a stand-up special,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the lines in her stand-up special is, "I don't want to yuck on anyone's yum," and I was like, "Wow, that's such a great saying." So yeah, I have heard of it before.
Oh my gosh, I'd never heard of it before, and I heard it with like a really heavy like Jersey accent, and I was like, because that sounds a little like bless your heart, you know? I was like, I'm not sure about that. Let me do this. I feel like, oh, that's so much better. I really, really don't like it when my
When your
jumps.
face is like a billboard, and you're like, "Look at
Yeah,
my face."
yeah, and you know what I feel like? I feel like, oh, and I forgot to fix that too. I feel like, I feel like a bird looking in a mirror, like, like just staring at myself the whole time, and it's like huge, and I'm like,
Pretty bird, pretty bird.
pretty bird, pretty bird. Yeah. So anyway, hey everybody, welcome to Ping and Amy's excellent adventure in true crime, and you are our most excellent chat, and we love having you here. And welcome to Thursday Night Live. Tonight we're going to talk about, amongst other things, people that have mental illness and how we hold them accountable for their crimes despite the fact that they are ill. It's a kind of a hot topic, but tonight we're going to talk about it specifically in Hollywood and maybe delve into how Hollywood handles mental illness and some of their actors, directors, and whatnot. So last Friday, Anne Heche, who has done everything from soap operas to major motion pictures, um, crashed her Mini Cooper into someone's house. She was going so fast, she said it. The car was on fire. The house was on fire. Apparently, Anne Heche was in the car for 45 minutes to an hour before she was removed. I don't know if anybody saw the crash footage, but they have her on a stretcher and they're putting her into the ambulance, and she literally sits up. It's like, it's freaky to see. Um,
Aimee, do you think she's coming out of shock at that point? I wonder if
yes,
she was unconscious and then all of a sudden, maybe the
yes.
cool air around her shocked her out of it, and then she's just like, "What's going on? Where am I?"
I do. I do think that's what that was. Yeah, or because of the burns, it was like a nerve response.
Yeah,
You know.
because you could see on her back
Mhm.
where her shirt was, it was all shrunken, and it looked like it was maybe almost stuck to her as well.
Yeah,
And that's yeah,
yeah.
she's gonna be in a lot of pain for a long time.
So at this point, luckily nobody in the house was hurt, but the house is a total loss. Anne Heche is in a coma. They haven't said it was medically induced, but I'm imagining it was
It
because
probably is, yeah.
with burn victims, that is a thing they do. She is going to require surgery for her burns. She has a pulmonary condition where she is not, they say that it's mechanical breathing, but my interpretation is not breathing on her own. Um, so there's that. And just so you guys know, I don't have the footage and I don't have, tonight I'm not going to have any visuals. and Pink can like maybe vouch for me on this. I've been doing a lot of research on fair use and things like that, and especially because I made this decision tonight for the show, because both of these stories come out of Hollywood, and so many of the photos and the storylines and the assets that we need to tell the story, that what I'm just going to have to tell you verbally, are owned by companies like Universal Studios, Universal Pictures, William Morris Agency. Like, I'm not going to take a risk on that. What I can do is, and usually I do this ahead of time, so I'm going to apologize to you. I will put some links in the description after we finish the show, so that if you want to go, watch this, you can. There is video from an aerial view of the crash afterwards, where you can actually see Anne Heche sitting up on the gurney, and you can hear a reporter like narrating the scene. And I don't believe that they know it's Anne at that point. There is also some like Ring doorbell cam footage. That car is flying down the street.
That noise the car makes as it goes past, it reminded me of, when you see jet crash videos where the plane comes in,
Stop
the
it.
noise is exactly the same as when a jet comes through. She was flying.
I swear to God, we did fall out of the pouch. I wrote jet because I knew that's what you were going to say. Yeah. It sounded like a jet engine, right? Just screeching down because it was just so fast. And it took me 2 or 3 times to watch that doorbell cam. And I can train my eyes to like fixate on one point of the screen, like just watch here because that's where you're going to see it. I still had to watch it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, she was flying.
She was really
I don't
good.
know how far you want to go into it, but I think there was a little bit of confusion originally around the timeline of the events. Some people had thought they had done the podcast, and then straight away she was leaving the podcast, and then that's when the crash happened. But then we found out later it was actually done a few days before. So
yeah, so let's back up. Anne does a podcast, and her most recent podcast, which has been removed to date, was removed right away. Whether she was being truthful or not, whether she was joking around or she was serious. She talked about drinking vodka with wine chasers, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter, I suppose. And so initially, when this happened, people were like, "Oh, she just left the studio, and she was drinking and all this stuff." But that podcast had been recorded days earlier, so that's not the case. Now, there are photos that are surfacing. She has a bottle in her car with a red cap. It could be an Evian bottle. It's a clear bottle with a red cap. It could be, or appears to be, a clear bottle. It could be like a Maker's Mark bottle. Those tend to have, it could be an Absolute vodka bottle. Those have a red cap. But about an hour before we went on, there was a report that came out that said that they had confirmed narcotics in her system from that day. So at least we have that at this point. So Anne has had a long history of alcohol abuse, known alcohol abuse, as well as a long history of mental illness. I don't know if people remember this, but back in 2002, she was arrested and put on a psych hold because she had gone to a random stranger's house and claimed that her name was Celestia, and that she was naked, and that she could talk to aliens, and it was very, very disturbing. And I guess what I want to talk about tonight, or at least my part, what I, and Ping will have his take on this, is that I'm very, very sensitive to mental illness and how we treat people, and getting people treatment so that they don't end up hurting themselves or others. And Anne has a very traumatic past. She claims to be sexually abused by her father. She moved around quite a bit because she was in a fundamentalist church. Her father dies. Her brother dies after that. Her sister won't talk to her because she believes that Anne is lying about the sexual abuse. So she has a lot of, family trauma. And then her mother, so Anne meets Ellen DeGeneres and comes out as gay, comes out as a lesbian, and her mother disowns her at this point. Later, Ellen and Anne break up, and Ellen didn't go after her. Ellen DeGeneres didn't go after her in a, I guess, like an overt way, but they were kind of like side jokes. And a lot of comedians made jokes about her. And then after 2002, she really became the topic for like late night talk show. When they do those monologues type of thing. We'll get to Anne being accountable and culpable, but I don't think that making fun of somebody's mental illness is funny or appropriate. And I guess I have a really hard time with her peers doing it.
Well, I wonder, Aimee, if you look at the incident from 2002, and she ended up on a lot of Conan and things like that, late night, comics and that.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at her car accident now, has she been ending up on any of the monologues this week for the late night shows?
So that I don't. I should know that. I don't. Because I don't watch those shows, and I didn't really think about that. What I can tell you is that there have been several Hollywood people that have come out saying, our condolences, or not condolences, but we wish Anne a recovery, or we're praying for you. And one of them is Alec Baldwin. He got criticized because he's Alec Baldwin, because he's got his own issues, and people think, you should probably just keep your mouth shut and worry about your own.
If you got a fake Spanish wife, you should probably just shush.
Yes. And then, hold on. And then let's see. I can't remember if it was Rosanna Arquette. I believe it was, or Patricia Arquette, but one of the Arquette sisters, was posting. Now these people, so they posted this on Instagram mostly is where you see it. They were absolutely eviscerated for wishing Anne anything. And I understand, I do understand that she caused a lot of damage, that it was irresponsible to get in a car and drive. I have a zero tolerance for drinking and driving, to be honest. I just it's one of the things that's going to really, really irritate me if I find out that you do it. And so there's been a lot of cutback about, even well wishes. And so I guess the question I have in my head, I mean, there's a lot of them, but one of them is, the poor woman whose house was destroyed. I mean, that's awful. There's a GoFundMe for her. Hopefully, she'll be able to rebuild. She'll never be able to replace those things that were in her house. She herself will be traumatized. She had animals in that house. I think she had 2 dogs and a tortoise. If you loved animals, after you find, sometimes for me, it's not even after you find out the other humans, but, luckily it was just her in the house, and she managed to get out, and she got her animals out and they're safe. But, we all have possessions that can't be replaced. So yeah, that's an issue. I mean, that's one side. So she's getting a lot of support, and then people are trying to support Anne Heche, and it's like, like I said, I get it. She committed a crime, or she had an accident that appears at this point to be reckless in nature, and we don't have all the details yet. But is it okay to say, like, I hope you get out of your coma, I hope you're okay, I hope you get through this? And where is that humanity for somebody else?
They're going through a much worse time than you are eating your Cheetos at your computer and commenting on Twitter. I think it doesn't matter. We can deal with the crime part later. Let's get the person healthy, and then we can, judge them for what they did. But right now, they're very sick, and they're in a very scary situation. They don't even, if she is in a coma, she has no idea she's in the coma.
No.
She has no idea what happened between when she left that house or wherever she came from and crashing into that home.
Right.
So I think we should stop fighting with each other and just get people healthy. Then we can, deal with the legal and, the bad parts of it. She will get judged for her crimes at some point.
Right.
But right now she just needs to get alive.
Yeah, she's going to be held accountable if she did something negligent or criminal, which, I mean, I'm not defending her. Everything, all indicators point to yes. She was most likely driving while intoxicated or under the influence, and perhaps, additional things going on, and maybe not receiving the mental health treatment she needs. Now, I guess what I want to ask you is, she has gone back to acting recently, and done well, and she's doing this podcast, and it's kind of like, you would expect your, whatever the production company you're working with, as well as your agent, to have you sign some sort of contract saying, I will receive regular mental health help. I will be tested for drugs and alcohol. I like all these things. Like, that's not just an Aimee thing. That is a kind of a gold standard out there. It doesn't mean that people aren't doing drugs all the time. It just means that people that, and not everybody is, but there's a lot of it. And we all know that. But what it does mean is that if somebody in their past has had issues like showing up naked on somebody's doorstep, claiming, to talk to aliens and changing their name to Celestia, that they're a liability on the set. They're a liability to a company. I mean, can you imagine trying to film a movie with somebody and all these scenes, and then, like, a month and a half into it, they have a complete breakdown, and you have to, like, either reshoot or scrub the film or wait, or, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do. I
what
think the obvious example, Amy, is Bam Margera on the Jackass movie that came out last year. He had a contract tied to his sobriety and a couple other things, and he broke that contract, and they kicked him out of the movie, and I think they scrubbed him from the movie, didn't they?
Yeah.
I haven't watched it, but I think they actually took all out his scenes as well because he broke the contract, and he's still in a recovery facility to this day.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what Whitney Houston had that when she was working on certain things. I know somebody that worked with her and Bobby Brown when they were, like, together.
Oh my lord.
Yeah. And they actually had a contract that, when they were traveling on the road, like in hotels, that the personal protection and logistics people could use physical force to restrain them and keep them in their room. So nobody was getting in there to deliver drugs. They weren't getting out for anything. When it was done and it was nighttime, maybe, like whatever ration they got, maybe they got, their bottle of Chrissy Chris or in there or something. They weren't leaving for anything, and nobody else was coming in. And if they were coming in, they were being searched because they weren't going to have it. And they were allowed to use physical force. Like, they had to sign off on something saying, if I try to leave my room and I become combative, they can restrain me and push me back in the room and stand against the door and not let me out. That
Very
is
interesting.
that's not uncommon when you're dealing with people that have mental illness and drug problems and are under contract. And so, like, is Anne responsible for herself? Yes, ultimately she's responsible for her own body, but you have to kind of wonder, was this just last Friday that she drove around like this, or has she been reckless and for quite some time and just there was no intervention? It's kind of I mean I'm a little confused because I heard on Friday morning that actually, so let's back up. She did the podcast days to a week earlier, right? But she was admittedly saying she was drinking during the podcast. Whether she was joking about it or not, there seems to be some truth to that situation. Because I have heard, so I have heard that she sounds intoxicated on it. And that was part of the reason. That was part of the reason they pulled it, for the confusion and because of that. And then this past Friday, apparently the when she drove into the house and it caught on fire, that wasn't her first accident that day. She'd had another little accident that day, not little. She hit a garage door of like an apartment or a condo, you know, where they have like the little garage out front and the villa behind it type of
Oh
situation.
yeah, those ones.
So she hit the garage door and people were worried about her and they were trying to get her out of the car. And as they're trying to get her out of the car and help her, she hit reverse and sped down the street.
I don't understand people who act like that on alcohol, drugs, whatever, or even just normally. I saw a police video last week of a woman who was trying to get the police were trying to pull her over, and then like they'd stop her and box her in, and then she'd take off and then keep going again, and like she wouldn't care if she hit 10 police cars, a police officer, anything. And I'm like, how do you get so messed up that like you're like, yeah, let's just slam the accelerator and keep going? Like, I don't know, maybe those people shouldn't drive anymore. I mean,
Well, give me a second here. Gather my thoughts. I'm having a very ADD day. It was a very challenging day. Maybe if I
I
just
agree. I think today's a little challenging for both of us. If you
yeah,
didn't know, I got back at like I messaged you, Amy, that I got back at like midnight last night,
yeah, because
and
I was
yeah, I didn't get to bed until like 4 a.m. or something like that because I had to come home and eat and stuff like that, and it was yeah.
you said you were so hungry. What did you eat? I have to
Oh,
know.
I had like taco and taco filling and rice and avocado and a bit of sour cream and some salsa, and it was good.
Do you know my husband made homemade salsa tonight, and that's what we did. I,
Yum.
I swear I fell out of the pouch and rolled over here. Fell right out of the pouch. We were separated birth. Yeah, I had the exact same dinner tonight because Chris was like, I saw something where I could make salsa, and I was like, okay, and so he did, and that's what I ate.
You should
Ate
make
salsa.
the salsa chicken in the slow cooker. It's like you just get the chicken breast and chop it up and dump the 2 bottles of salsa in the thing and then just cook it. It's like really good.
This was so good. Usually I like pico de gallo more, like the raw, and I was kind of like sketched when he was like, I'm gonna make salsa, which because he was cooking in a cast iron skillet. It was really good though, and I just literally I ate it with avocado and lettuce and tomato and some cilantro and the salsa, and then I had to eat it with corn chips because I'm gluten free. But yeah, but it was really good. But anyway, off on a tangent. Yeah, so you went to see Chris Rock last night.
I did. I went and
How was it?
saw Chris Rock in the city. The show itself was amazing. It was a lifelong dream come true to see him.
That's awesome.
The getting there was a pain in the butt. We got into the city, and the train kind of stopped just before the central station, and it
Hmm.
just sat there for 15 minutes, and it was like, what's going on? And then the guy came over the announcement, and he's like, we're just waiting for the platforms to clear out before we bring more people like to the station. And I'm like, dude, you let like 4 trains go in, and I'm
Yeah,
stressed out because it's like 7:45 and the show starts at 8. And I'm
right,
like, so we finally get in. We rush upstairs, we jump in a cab, and he takes us over to, because it's not far. You can actually walk it. We walked back, but getting there, we wanted to be on time.
right.
And he drops us off. We get there, and we follow these other people. We're like, where is it? And we're like following these people, and we turn a corner, and there's still 500 people at 8 o'clock waiting to get in.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
it was all because Chris Rock wanted no phones at the event, so
Oh,
you
that's
had to
right. Tell them about that.
so you had to turn off your phone, and then you got searched by security, and then they put your phone in this little pouch that locks until the end of the show. So that's what took so long getting everyone in, because you can't just check tickets. They got to search you, then put your phone in the thing, and anyway, we got upstairs, we got our seats, watched a little bit of the warm up guy. His name was Rich Ingram. He was really, really good. He does like crowd work, so he was like making fun of Australians in the crowd.
Mhm.
And then 8:30 hits, and Chris Rock comes out. He does an hour and a half routine, and he had everyone in stitches for like most of the time. He was really good, really funny. Brought up a lot of very good like socio-political views, and um, there's some I'll talk to you about in private, because they're the ones we don't address here. But
Yeah.
yeah, they were very interesting though. But it was a great night. I had a lot of fun. It was a great birthday present. So
Yay! I'm excited. I'm excited for you. That's awesome. I know when you texted me last night that you were getting home, I was like, ooh, that was late night. And then you're like, I'm so hungry. I'm like, yeah, I bet you are. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and we don't really talk politics or like I mean I'll talk some things controversial, obviously, but I was telling Pink, I live in Florida. It's getting scary here and mm, no bueno. So it's like Gilead. So no thank you. I'm not gonna do any of that anytime soon. But so back to Anne, real quick, if we can. Um, I like this comment, and then I'm going to go back to something that TCU said. It says, living with mental illness is a day to day struggle for some, not excusing drink driving, but have same compassion for others as you would appreciate for yourself. If she lives, she'll never be whole. I agree. I agree. And alcoholism is a disease too, and it's a very tricky subject to talk about mental health and drug addiction, alcohol addiction, anything like that, anything that can impair like the way your mind works, your motor skills, that kind of stuff. Because although you're sick, you still have to be accountable for what you do, and it's confusing. I guess there's no blessing in destroying somebody's home. I'm glad that nobody. I'm not. I am sad for her that she's in a coma and that she's burned and she won't ever be the same. But maybe this is the rock bottom that you need when you're dealing with things like that. I think I'd just like to know, like, you remember you said, why do people throw their car in reverse and run and all of that stuff?
yeah, it's a weird. I've seen it in a bunch of different like police videos and that, and it's almost like they just don't want to be there. They're like, I just want to get out of here any way possible.
They can be in a psychotic state too. They can feel like everyone's after them. They can feel like something specific is after them, and that specific doesn't exist. There could be. Anne has been known to hallucinate. Um, I just, it's to me, it's heartbreaking because you can't force somebody to handle their stuff, but considering that hospitalization in 2002, I would have thought she'd have more eyes on her than she's seems to have.
She
Um,
might have grown out of that protection, 'cause being it's like 20 years later.
yeah. I'm gonna read Jen's comment here. If we address mental health properly in this country, both in the social sphere and policy spheres, we wouldn't have so many tragedies. MI is our mental health. Is that it? The last taboo and stigma needs to disappear. I agree. Just, you know, I always,
Everyone in their life will suffer from some point, some form of mental health issue. Let's not keep it under the blanket. Let's talk about it and normalize it so that people can get help when they first see the signs, rather than being like in denial. Oh, I'm not sick. I don't want to be that person, and then we can help them earlier on, and then they can lead fulfilling lives.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, I mean, I don't know if they'll know where she was at mind wise, other than being under a controlled substance. I mean, they could definitely determine that. I'm not really sure how much more they can accept to talk to people that are around her that day. And I think that's going to be a little difficult because I don't think there's going to be a lot of people. If she was around people that day, it's going to be hard to get people in that microcosm to admit that, like, oh yeah, we saw her drinking, or oh yeah, she wasn't making any sense that day, and then she just hopped in the car. I mean, yes, she's a grown woman, but I know that I've stopped people from driving their cars before that are grown people, not because they're bad people, just because they're about to make a bad decision. They're not in the right state of mind. That's just what we do for each other. And I guess, like, I'm just really confused by a lot of this. What is
Well,
Kate
you
saying?
even look this week, Amy. Marshawn Lynch was arrested in Las Vegas for under
Hmm.
the influence. If you know who Marshawn Lynch is,
Yeah,
the football player,
yeah.
he was arrested, and if you see his mugshot, he looked blasted. Like he looked really under it.
Hmm.
And so it doesn't just affect the homeless person you see on the corner. It
No,
affects
oh
even people with millions of dollars in the bank account.
no, I no. I grew up in an alcoholic family. My dad was one, or is one. So, and it was like a Lifetime movie because it was like a dirty little secret. You know what I mean? So I definitely know, and a lot of his friends were too, and they were successful people. My dad was a functioning alcoholic, so he could come home and drink like a fifth or whatever at night, or sometimes more, and then get up in the morning and go to work like that. So yeah, that happens. It's um and itself is a disease. Yes, this did occur in California. Red like wine again. You'd think, as long as I've known you, I'd be able to say your name. I'm so sorry. Just gotta read, what was it up here? Did we read Kate's comment? She said, I think Robin Williams is a great example of someone seemingly having it all, able to afford the best of health and still fall victim to depression. Yeah, that was a hard one. We didn't see him. He seemed to suffer in silence and not do a lot of. It wasn't public, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, you definitely saw that, and he had people around him that seemingly didn't know. And then what did?
It almost felt like with Robin Williams that he gave so much of himself to the world that he almost kept his mental illness as his own secret from the world. That's the
Yes,
way I looked at it when I watched his documentary on his life. It was almost like he'd given so much, and he kept his like this worst thing he kept from everyone, but it was the one thing he should have shared so he could have got more help. And it's
yeah.
very sad because he was a great man that the world is
Mhm.
poorer for not having.
Well, I think he suffered in silence, and this is a whole nother show. But maybe, what happens sometimes is, and it's generational too. I think we're a little bit more careful about saying these things to people. You remember, like, put on a happy face, or being in a good mood is a choice, or just get out of bed or go for a walk. And that's kind of what he did. He brought such joy to people. and then inside he was hurting, and that must have felt terrible.
Like living two different lives,
Mhm.
really.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
did you ever see those rich people that post like, your goals are only like, you're the only one stopping them, and you can reach a mountaintop, you just have to want to, and all this stuff. And
right.
I'm like,
Mm-mm.
yeah, that's fine if you like wake up in the morning and you've got everything and things like that, and you're perfectly fine and healthy. And
Mhm.
it's such an ignorant thing to post, and I can't stand it when I see those people. We have a lot of them in Australia that post it. They're
Yeah.
like, the rich and famous, and they're always healthy and they're fine, and yeah, it just drives me nuts.
I mean, you do have to want your goals, but the thing is that there are places that in your life where you need a hand up. You can't do it by yourself, and you do rely on the kindness of others, or like in Anne's case, you do rely on somebody looking out for you and saying, "Hey, you know what? Like this is like something's off here. Let's take a moment. Let's figure it out." You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be okay. I don't think I, that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody like that has depression to say like just get up and go for a run, or it's your decision to be happy or not, or um, if you really want that big mansion, all you have to do is really really want it and work really really hard and you'll get it. There's a whole social conversation that we can have about people, how quick, what I will say about this. I read something the other day, and it was about a girl that was living in her car. And so I'm going to try to do it in 2 minutes. Two and two, like Chuck Woolery. The love connection. Okay, so her rent, this is very common right now. Her rent went up by $750. She could not afford it. She did not want to get evicted, so she moved out at the end of her lease, only to find out that there's no other place she can live what's affordable anymore. This is local to where I live because the market has gone up so much. So, and she's like, okay, I'll live in my car. She gets a storage unit. She's going to have to check into the storage unit every day. She's living by following van life blogs, trying to figure out how she's going to do this so she can keep her job. So she buys a membership to Planet Fitness, which is a gym that has like really nice locker rooms and showers and things. So her plan is sleep in the car, visit the storage unit every day to get what she needs, and then to shower and do all the things she needs to do at Planet Fitness.
Oh, I saw that girl, Amy. She has a TikTok account.
Does
Is that
she?
the one? Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
saw her, and she was like, I live in my car and I eat in like my driving seat and stuff. Yeah,
Mhm.
I saw her. It's very sad.
It is,
It's
and
horrible.
these people, so I read this in I believe it was the Orlando Sentinel. So they may have picked it up off of TikTok, and because I'm on TikTok, I'm surprised I didn't see it because I would have seen it there too. But yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. That's where they got it from. So these people in the comments were nasty. They were like, I wouldn't hire an employee that was so irresponsible that they live in their cars, or blah blah blah. You should have had savings. Everybody knew that the market was going up. It's like I don't think most people realize, and I'm not trying to be like scary here, but how close we all are to that in some way. And instead of like for me, I was looking at her like, well, I mean, hopefully somebody will reach out, somebody that can help her. Like, not necessarily giving her money because it's not going to solve the problem if she can't do it long term, right? But
Right.
maybe,
It'll solve it for like a month, and then she won't be able
right,
to afford the rent after like
right,
6 months, and then she'll be in the same position.
right. So that doesn't solve the problem. But, maybe you have a garage apartment, or maybe you can take another roommate and split the rent, or maybe, something. Maybe you can let this poor girl, I mean, I understand it's a liability, but say, you know what, I own this 7-Eleven that's open 24 hours and you can park in our parking lot because we don't want you to get chopped up in the middle of the night. And
See,
then,
that's the scary thing, Amy. These people who are sleeping in their cars, the cops often kick them out of like a lot of the safest places, and
Mm.
they're like, "Oh, you can't stay here where it's lit and nice and safe." They're like, "You have to go and like sleep in the bush," and
Yeah.
it's like, why are we doing that to people? Let them. They're all they're doing is sleeping. As long as they're not making a tent site out there, they should be allowed to. I hate that.
And this girl is still going to work. She's going to work like every day. Like, you shouldn't go to our boss and say, I can't be here for 2 weeks. So she, because of this, she just moved out of her house or her apartment on the weekend and then moved into her car and got, basically handled her ass so that she could be responsible. I mean, it's not like she's, I don't know,
I
it's just
think
sad.
she's probably afraid of losing her job if she tells her boss that
Oh,
she's homeless or whatever.
well, I'm sure she probably could. And Florida's a right to work state. And I know when we used to hire here, I remember one company I worked for. It's not. It is not legal to ask somebody, "Do you have a car?" You can say, "Do you have transportation to get to work?" But like they didn't want to hire anybody that had a car, and then they wanted to know what kind of car, what your car, because they wanted to make sure it was dependable. And it was like embarrassing. Like, come on. Like it doesn't matter. If they say they're going to be there, they're going to be here. And by the way, if you're driving a Maybach and I hire you tomorrow, you may decide that you just don't feel like going to work and not come in.
Yeah, I feel like the person with the 1981 Miata is probably going to be there on time
Yeah,
because they're going to want to make sure they can upgrade that Miata at some point.
exactly. But yeah, it's just sad. The things in the comments that I read were just horrible. And I only hope that like somebody reaches out and says like, or maybe it's a friend that didn't know and now it's in the paper and they're like, yeah, you're going to come stay at my house.
That would be nice. I think the best thing we can do for someone in life is give them a hand when they need it.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes we also have to set boundaries when we do that because you don't want that friend to turn into the friend that stays for 5 years, unless that's what you want. But
Right.
when you make those offers, just make sure you put out boundaries at the start. I think that's where a lot of people slip up. They're like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, we love you. You can stay here forever," and then people take advantage, and then relationships get ruined. And so, if you do that, make sure you put in strong, boundaries at the start. Be like, it's a couple of weeks, and we're going to help you find
Yes.
somewhere more stable and things like that.
Yeah. I see. I want to be clear here, just so that we're all on the same page. Kate says, if you have no insurance coverage, you basically have no access to counseling. If you are on government sponsored insurance, your choices are very limited and you're on a waiting list. So I'm not sure if you're in the US or not, but I am 100% okay sharing this. So for my ADD, which is like, if we're on a scale from 1 to 10, by diagnosis is like off the charts. Okay. Um, if I use a lot of coping mechanisms, but when I first got treatment for it, it was to the point where um, I may have started, like, I didn't do drugs or anything like that, but I was starting to have impulsivity issues. And it was in risk taking issues. So mine was, I lived alone. I didn't want to do what I was supposed to do at night or something, or I was wound up and I couldn't go to bed. And I would go to Walmart by myself at like 2:30 in the morning and spend $100 on like stuff I didn't need. Um, like that kind of stuff is like where I was at, right?
That's very common with bipolar too.
Yeah,
They do the manic thing and then they buy a
yeah,
lot of stuff and
yeah. But to be clear, I'm not. Not that there's anything, but
oh
that,
no, I'm just saying I know because someone in our family
yeah.
has bipolar and they would do that as well and they would wake up like, not wake up a week later, but they would kind of snap out of it and then a week later like 200 packages would show up and they'd be like, "Wait,
Oh,
what?"
yeah, I didn't do that. I didn't do online ordering. I liked to remove myself from the environment. So I'd be wired and I'd be up late and I'd see things that I needed to do and I was overwhelmed and I wanted to get away from it. So I would
It's
find somewhere,
avoidance behavior.
yeah. So I'd find somewhere that was open to go do that. So I didn't, because I couldn't sleep. But anyway, what I wanted to share with you guys is that for a single person, I was making a pretty good living. But I could not, and I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but the company I work for, there were so many women there of like childbearing age that it averaged the amount of like how much insurance we all had, or like how much the insurance cost. It was very, very expensive. When I say it was expensive, it was like almost $950 a month. Okay. So,
Wow, that's a lot of. Is that because you might get pregnant and have a baby?
and
Uh,
I'm not sure how all of that stuff works, but we had a couple a couple of women that had gone through like breast cancer and things like that. I'm not sure if that impacted us as a group. I don't know. We only had one option for insurance, and that was it. So I could not afford it. So I had to sign a waiver saying, I was declining insurance. And then when they had the healthcare reform, I was in a group of people where I made too much to qualify for, the new healthcare plans provided by the government, but I didn't make enough to pay for what was going through my company. So I was uninsured for quite some time, a very, very long time. And it was extremely hard. And I needed my medication, and I needed to go to was going to a therapist to learn coping mechanisms, because I think I had been, and I know this happens a lot, I think I'd been ADD my whole life, but I showed atypical symptoms like being the perfectionist overachiever at the very last minute, like that type of stuff. I mean, that's common, but I was doing it like all the time with my stuff. And I just hit a wall when I hit a certain age. You know what I mean? So yeah.
yes.
But anyway, sorry, I went on and on. But yeah, I get the no insurance thing, and it is super hard, and you have to beg, you have to um, ask for samples, ask for generics. For me, the coping mechanisms were part of it, because like I don't recommend this for everybody, but I take a very small amount of medication. I still need it, but I take a smaller amount because I have things that I've put in place in my life, and I've practiced and worked with a therapist on how to deal with it, and how to not get depressed when like today I had a very non-productive day. Um, I, I, I mean, I think some of the stuff I got done was important, but I felt like there were hours where I was just like really not doing much of anything. Like I was running around doing a little bit of everything, getting nothing done. And that used to set me off and make me like sad or emotional. And like, I don't really have that. I just like, now I'm just like, oh, it's just not a good day. And it is a full moon tonight.
It's always the full moon that gets you.
That might be it.
But Aimee, I can tell you that someone who was diagnosed with ADHD when I was younger, back in the 90s, the support was very limited, even in Australia where we have universal health care. I used to have to go into this place, and they would put a brain cap on me. They would squirt it with gel in each of the little things, and then they'd put the electrodes in, and then I'd have to watch this screen with like a checkerboard and a ball, and then I'd have to follow the ball, and then they would measure your brain activity. And then, yeah, they would see how long without medication you could follow the ball, and
Gosh.
then they would give you medication and make you come back in, and then
Mhm.
make you follow the ball again, and then see if the medication was working for your focus. But that's what they used to think it was. They just used to think it
Yeah.
was only focusing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot more. And it has comorbidities, and one of them can be, depending on who you are, could be anxiety. You get anxiety about like, oh my gosh, I can't, like, this is just like, Brad like Winigan says we all have days like that, and that's true. But, maybe you have something like really big for your job tomorrow, and you can't, or I don't say you can't, but you're having a lot of difficulty, you're struggling focusing that day, you're trying to prepare and you're thinking, oh my gosh, my job's on the line, or you get anxiety because you're talking in front of a bunch of people and you lose your train of thought, or you're not. One of the things that happens is that there are gaps in your speech and your brain is filling in the gaps, but nobody hears it. So you just don't sound like you're making a point. Do you know what I'm saying?
Definitely, I've had all those things, and I find I get a lot of avoidance disorder with my ADHD. So if there's something that stresses me out, I'll just avoid it, and I've learned to deal with it a bit better as an adult. But when I was younger, I was really bad with it. I'd literally just run away from whatever was going on.
Oh, sure. It's
And now it's a bit
okay.
better as I'm older, but yeah.
It's very, very overwhelming, and it can cause social anxiety that makes you want to be alone more, or you want to be alone because it's quiet and you don't have all those distractions of being out in a place. Your mind isn't racing, or you feel like, oh, I'm a freak because I can't engage with everybody, or I'm a freak because I hear every conversation at the same time and I'm keeping up with all of them in my head. Like, so I can't socialize because that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I have issues where there's too many people talking, or there's just too many people in one room, because I'm like, it's like it overloads my senses, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I can't handle it. It's like my whole
Yeah.
nervous system just shuts down because it's like it's just too much feedback. But it's got a little better as I'm older. Like, I did go to the concert last night and I was all right, and you know, we get a little bit better and a little bit worse depending on the day. And
Yeah.
but oh,
Um,
Aimee, did you see that link I sent you last night, by the way?
about yes, you have not checked your email, Mr. Ping.
I wasn't home.
Excuses. Yes,
Um,
fill them in.
well, we brought you a story about Blint Homes on Tuesday, and about how they had lied about bringing in a liquidator or a winding up company.
Mhm.
About 18 hours after we went to air, they actually brought in a liquidator I'm not sure if it's a liquidator or just an administrator to wind it up, but they
Mhm.
actually did engage a firm to come in and say that they were not trading and they were like, illiquid or not liquid, and they were winding up the company. And look, I don't think it was us and our 300 subscribers, but even though we love you all,
Mhm.
but I do wonder why he chose that timing of. And look, there was a big news article in Australia too at the same
Mhm.
time, but it's just a little funny that, yeah. But
Yeah, it was,
they've brought it up and they're winding up the company now, which is in some
yeah,
ways good, in some ways bad. So
yeah. I mean, the timing was ironic. I would probably guess that as I don't know how business is handled in Australia, but here what they would do is when they stopped meeting financial obligations and there were enough complaints, then they would start in. That was weird. They would start an investigation, and then internally they would have to provide, like, this is how we're going to get ourselves out of it. And when it's clear that they can't, it's when they shut it down so they don't cause any more harm. And there might be something to liquidate to satisfy some of the creditors. Does that make
yeah, well,
sense?
they said they had $1 million in unsecured credit, I think, that
Mm-hmm.
they owed, and I was like, that's a very small amount for a
Yeah,
building company. Very
yeah,
tiny, especially this company's got about 9 projects that they're working on right now. And I guess if you just can't get the funds, you can't get the funds, but it is a very tiny amount for a building company.
um, I'm reading you guys' comments. Yeah, I wonder if that article wasn't like as complete as it should have been when it was published, because reading just so this article that Ping sent me, there were two families. One was building like a set of townhouses, and then another one was building their like but a home as well. But they were both there like their dream homes, right?
Right.
And I think one person hadn't had any activity in their building project in 6 months, and they'd already put in like 500,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it
So
was a lot of money.
just between those two people, that was more than $1 million. So I'm not sure they've added up what their unpaid labor contracts are. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's very strange, isn't it?
Yeah,
How do you get only $1 million when just one project on its own was worth
yeah,
1.5?
yeah, that doesn't make it. That's why I say I wonder if they just kind of like ran to press and it wasn't complete, or it was written in a way that I don't know. I don't know. It read kind of weird, and I know you feel the same way, because when I read the 1 million, I was like, when you see my response, I'm like, there's got to be more than that.
Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense. But look, I'm sort of glad they've done it now because in Australia, once a company winds up like that, there's a certain insurance scheme that the people who have homes waiting to be built can access and get. I think it's like 70% of their money back through the
That's good.
insurance.
That's
So
good.
I mean, it's not great. Especially with the rising costs right now, there's going to be a very big gap for them to finish their homes. But at least they get something, I guess.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, all right, so we're talking about Anne, and let's switch over to Armie Hammer. I don't know if you guys remember. I mean, he's been in a lot of stuff. Let me pull up the IMDb. I remember him from The Social Network. Um, and let me see. I should have had this up already. So sorry. And the other thing I want to tell you guys is like, when I look over to the side like this and Ping is talking, just so you know, I'm not rolling my eyes at him.
She totally is. Don't listen to her. She is.
I'm not. It's the camera's backwards, and I'm trying to look at the chat. While because we're taking turns doing that, and I noticed somebody sent me a comment the other night and says, "It looks like you're always rolling your eyes at people." I'm like, no, you're not. I'm not. I'm
She's just
not.
reading. That's all.
Yeah.
Oh, while Amy's setting this up, I'll tell you guys a little something. We have some um, pop culture news that I want to bring to you guys. In week one, when we did this show, we spoke about a show called Cold Justice.
Hmm.
Now, I told you at the time that they were supposed to come back sometime summer 2022. I reached out to a friend at Oxygen Network a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I can finally tell you a little bit of news. They're going to announce next week that the new release date will be September 3rd for Cold Justice's new season. And then a week later, the lady who actually is the host of Cold Justice put it on her Twitter that it was September 3rd. So I think when it comes onto air, we might do a little bit of a watch party one week, and we'll all watch the show. We'll come here and then we'll talk about it for a little bit because they're very, very interesting cold cases. So
Yeah, I'd love that. Okay. Oh, you know what? I haven't seen her in here tonight, but Berserker Loki. So before we move off of Anne permanently, she was actually a voice of a character in Adventure Time. So
really,
there you go. Yeah, I saw it in her IMDb. I was like, huh. Actually, she did a lot of voice work for animation, which I was not aware of. So that was kind of interesting. Okay, so Armie Hammer was in, like, if you want to talk about older programs, Desperate Housewives. He had some appearances. Veronica Mars. He did The Lone Ranger. He did The Social Network. He did Hotel Mumbai. Uh, he did some voice work in Cars 3, the Disney. Um, so quite nocturnal. Entourage. Um, quite a few things. So this is a little strange, and I have the article. I can put it up on the screen. Um, I know we've been on about an hour, but I feel like I pulled so many things on Armie Hammer that what I would like to do, if it's and Ping, if it's not, I mean, like, you can tell me. But I think maybe I'd like to share the Vanity Fair article because it's just so well written and it has so much information, and you will see why we put these two stories together in about 2 seconds as soon as we're done.
Well, we were late tonight because of me, so I'm happy to go longer than we normally would.
Okay. All right. So let me do this. I'll have it up on the screen, but I'll go ahead and read it. It's very well written, so it's, you don't have to rely on me. And Ping will stop while I'm reading it and talk about, like, at certain points. Does that work?
Yeah, that works
And
fine. Let's
then
do it.
when we're done, we can kind of like call it a night. So
All right, sounds good, guys.
give me just a momento here. I'm not rolling my eyes. Here we go. Okay. So, pull this down. Okay. So, this is written by Julie Miller, and it was actually published March 11th, 2021. Okay, The Fall of Armie Hammer, a family of saga of sex, money, drugs, and betrayal. The actor's life seemed perfect, beautiful wife and kids, sparkling Hollywood career, but a glimpse into his family history reveals how shocking allegations over dark fantasies of cannibalism and bondage and the ensuing fallout are one more chapter in Hammer's fraught legacy. So I'll go ahead and read this article, but I'm going to tell you that Discovery, starting on September 2nd, is going to be doing a 3-part series on him. And there are a lot of text messages, private phone calls. There's all kinds of things. You'll see them on the screen here. I'm not comfortable playing them because they have been licensed by, I believe it's NBC, Universal, and Discovery. So I'm not going to take a chance of playing it, but I will put this article in there so that you guys can go and play it yourself. There's just no way for me to get around that. So there's that. So, okay, credit to Vanity Fair and the author and the date, and I'm covered. Fair use. Sorry, I'm going to be like that for a while because this stuff is getting a little scary. So, it says Armie Hammer already needed crisis therapy. The world was under lockdown last summer, and Hammer had been quarantining at a luxury villa in the Cayman Islands with his father, Michael, his stepmother, Misty, his 2 young children, and his wife of a decade, Elizabeth. It was a very complicated, intense situation with big personalities all locked in a little tiny place, Hammer told British GQ last September.
Aimee, can I just stop you for a second? The
Mhm.
people in the chat are saying it's a little small. Can we make it a little bigger?
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't mean to break you.
No. Sure. I didn't make it bigger because I don't think you're going to be able to like follow along. But tell me when I get bigger.
I think that's fine.
I can make it here. Is that too big?
No, I think that's good. I think they should be able to read it now.
Okay. All right. Hold on then.
Sorry, I broke your train of thought and concentration.
It's fine. Okay. So he's, hold on 1 second.
That's why it's hard when you make it bigger.
Yep. That's all right. I got a solution to it. All right. Here we go. Okay, it says it was a very complicated, intense situation with big personalities all locked in a little tiny place. Hammer told British GQ last September, I don't think I handled it very well. I think, to be quite frank, I came very close to completely losing my mind. He compared himself to a trapped wolf who wants to chew his own foot off. Hammer had been so desperate to escape the Caymans that he booked a flight back to the U.S. A source close to Elizabeth claims that his decision to flee his family during a pandemic was the final straw in a marriage that had already been tested by infidelity. She filed for divorce in July. By January 1st, Hammer seemed to have rebounded romantically with a series of short-term girlfriends and was ready to face the world anew. 2021 is going to kneel down before me and kiss my feet because this year I'm the boss, Hammer tweeted. 2020 was a cheap shot no one was expecting. Now I know what we're up against and it's time to go to war. Several weeks later, however, Hammer found himself in a darker crisis. Amid the turmoil of divorce proceedings, several women took to social media to accuse the actor of emotional abuse, manipulation, and violence. The scandal ballooned as screen grabs circulated that seemed to show the actor describing sexual fantasies involving rape and cannibalism. Hammer stepped away from 2 high-profile projects, a rom-com with Jennifer Lopez and a Paramount series with the making of The Godfather, shortly after his agency WME, which is William Morris, dropped him. So this is a photo of Armie Hammer, and we'll explain who he is in just a minute. For the people who know Hammer's family, peppered with Russian communists and American oil tycoons, the allegations are unsurprising development to a long and sordid history with drugs, sex, dysfunction, and betrayal. Many men in the Hammer family have a dark side, sources closest to the family say, one that looms across 5 consecutive generations. The family's first brush with scandal was in 1919, when Armie's great-grandfather, Dr. Julius Hammer, gave the wife of a Russian diplomat an abortion. Julius was a Russian immigrant living in the Bronx and a central member of the Communist Party of the United States, according to biographer Edward J. Epstein, who published Dossier, The Secret History of Armie Hammer in 1996. The woman, Mary I'm practicing this, Oganesov, and I butchered it, died days later. Julius was convicted of first-degree manslaughter and sentenced to 3.5 to 12 years in Sing Sing. With Julius in prison, his 22-year-old son, Armie Hammer, Armie's namesake, abandoned a medical career to take over his father's other business, Allied Drug. According to Epstein, Vladimir Lenin sent a message to Joseph Stalin encouraging particular support for Armie, telling him, "This is a small path to the American business world, and this path should be made use of in every way." Armie moved to the Soviet Union in 1921 for about a decade to fortify family connections. While there, he married a Russian singer named Olga, and together they had a son named Julian, Armie's grandfather. By the 1950s, Armie had divorced Olga, as well as his second wife, Angela, who had told the court that due to his time in Russia and his medical training, it causes him no pain to see the sufferings of others. He moved to Los Angeles, married a wealthy woman named Frances Barrett Tolman in 1956, invested her money in the then failing Occidental Petroleum, and then drove the company to incredible success. I started watching Succession, and I had to turn it off, said Armie's Aunt Casey Hammer, because it was like, oh my God, that's my family. So Casey's going to be the whistleblower on this. Armie's aunt. Armie tried to distance himself from the Soviet connections, reimagining himself as a self-made industrialist. He even hired a journalist to ghostwrite a memoir, The Remarkable Life of Dr. Armie Hammer. He had a private Boeing 727, palled around with Prince Charles and high-powered politicians. He was a close friend of Senator Al Gore Sr. and attended the inaugurations of FDR, Reagan, and George H.W. Bush, among other presidents. He collected expensive artwork and convinced Chinese leaders to lend 2 pandas to Los Angeles for the city's 1984 Olympics. He died in 1990. But in 1996, Epstein's bombshell biography exposed the late Occidental Petroleum chairman for a wide-ranging grifts, including laundering money, using artwork to fund Soviet espionage, bribing his way into the oil business, and knocking off Fabergé eggs. Per Epstein, Armie bugged his office and home, plus his cufflinks, to record decades' worth of conversations, had a fixer, and was known to do business with a briefcase full of cash. He also made an illegal contribution to the Nixon re-election campaign, which, in all likelihood, according to the New York Times, went to help pay for the Watergate cover-up. Though he faced a felony charge for obstructing justice, a Washington lawyer helped him plead guilty to misdemeanor charges, and H.W. Bush later pardoned him. Armie had multiple mistresses, including Martha Kaufman, a mother of 2 who divorced her husband after meeting Armie, and who was put on Occidental's payroll as an art consultant. When Armand's wife Frances grew suspicious, Armie had Martha legally change her name to Hillary Gibson, insisting, according to Epstein, that his mistress wear wigs, glasses, and makeup to change her appearance. The affair lasted over a decade, with Armie promising to take care of her and her children after he died. She later told Epstein, per the biographer, she drove a car with a homing device, used a tapped phone, and submitted to his sexual demands even when they were extremely humiliating. When Armie died, she learned that he had left her out of his will. So there's Armand with his wife Frances in Red Square, and as chairman of the American Occidental Petroleum Corps with Leonard Brezhnev, General Secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, with Prince Charles, Friendly Polo Club, blah, blah, blah. So everything he did was public, said Casey Hammer, Armand's granddaughter and Armie's aunt, who is estranged from most of her family and works as a kitchen designer at San Diego Home Depot. God forbid you did anything wrong in front of his friends. You couldn't wear the same dress twice to his gala parties. On the outside, we had to be the perfect family, but behind the scenes, Armand required his son Julian, daughter-in-law Sue, and 3 grandchildren to make appointments to see him, Casey claimed. I started watching Succession, and I had to turn it off, said Casey, because it was like, oh my God, that's my family. Julian was extremely bright, but Armand did not seem to care much for his only child and passed him over entirely when he left Julian's son Michael, Armie's father, his business empire. Casey believes her father Julian caused too much trouble and was an affront to Armand's obsession with appearances. As she said, he could never get my grandfather's attention unless he resorted to really, really bad behavior. In the mornings after Julian's 26th birthday in 1955, he killed a man inside his Los Angeles home over a gambling debt and supposed advances on his wife, Glenna Sue. The front page headlines read, Millionaire Son Kills GI. Armand had a friend deliver $50,000 in cash to a lawyer in Los Angeles. Julian claimed self-defense and charges were dismissed. In her self-published 2015 book, Surviving My Birthright, Casey alleges that Julian sexually abused her when she was a child and that Julian was abusive to others in the family, allegations she also made to Epstein. In an email, Jan Ward, Casey and Michael's half-sister, declined to comment on the allegations, instead offering this statement. I will say that I love my family very much, which includes my brother, my sister, and my nephews. I do have wonderful memories of his kids spending every summer at Laguna Beach with their grandma Olga and spending the holidays with our parents and grandparents. We were blessed to be able to attend excellent schools thanks to Grandpa Hammer, who was a great supporter of education. Our family taught us the value of hard work, and I've had a fulfilling career and a wonderful family life. Like his father, Michael struggled with excess. In 1985, Michael, then working at Occidental, met Drew Mobley on a plane. The lore, as Armie told New York Magazine's Vulture, my dad, supposed to be on a flight, went to the airport and got hammered and passed out. He missed his flight, woke up, and was like, oh God, I have a meeting. He rebooked, switched seats due to claustrophobia, and wound up next to Dr. Drew. They married that year and had Armie the next. The devout Christian Drew seemed to have a tempering effect on Michael's own vice struggles, which he had said included drinking and drugs. When I accepted Christ, Michael had said, the bad experience didn't just stop, but they started dwindling. If Armand wanted to keep the empire he built in the family, he didn't have many options. His son Julian was addled and unreliable, and his grandson Michael, by multiple accounts, was not as bright and more interested in a playboy lifestyle than world domination. When Armie was 4, his great-grandfather Armand, estimated by Forbes to be worth about $180 million, died. The battle for the estate began almost immediately, and still simmers 30 years later. Within hours of Armand's death, police officers who were summoned to the house observed Michael attempting to remove belongings and load them into 5 waiting cars. The house, which had been owned by the late Frances, was to be turned over to Frances's niece upon Armand's death. Casey and Hillary claimed that Armand had made promises to his family that his estate would take care of them, that at the will reading in Los Angeles law office, his heirs learned he'd only left behind a piddly $40 million. Casey and her father would each receive just $250,000. In addition to cutting Julian out, Armand name-checked Jan, Sue's daughter from another relationship, and thereby his step-granddaughter, as having no claim to his estate. All of a sudden, I'm in a bad Stephen King novel, Casey said. My father is worried about why Michael got the Rolls Royce, and I'm like, Dad, you don't understand. You're going to be out on the street. No one's paying for your house. No one's paying for anything. The next day, Casey said that she sat with Julian, so he doesn't have to blow his brains out now because he's threatening to kill me, he's threatening to kill Michael, he's threatening to kill everybody. In total, 100 claims and lawsuits were filed against Armand's estate. By Casey, by former mistresses, by charities, that alleged the late tycoon owed them, according to the Washington Post. Casey says that she settled for about $1.4 million For Epstein, Hillary Gibson settled for $4.2 million. The inheritance battle tore the family apart. Michael's own mother, Sue Kane, told the Washington Post that her son forgot about us, instead favoring Drew's family. Rumors still linger that Armand had stockpiled large sums in cash lock boxes in secret overseas bank accounts, and those were inflamed with when Scott Dittrich, Michael's college friend, who Michael appointed as vice president of the Hammer Foundation, was arrested after a flight back from London with $60,000 in undeclared cash. According to Twin Cities news stories at the time, Dittrich's passport recorded nearly 12 trips abroad lasting less than 36 hours. So he's running money back and forth from bank accounts. Armand had yearned for legacy, spending over $100 million to build a Hammer Museum, but in 1994, according to the Washington Post, Michael turned the Hammer Museum over to USA Art Department. He also asked the Metropolitan Museum of Art to remove Armand's name from the Hall of Arms and Armor rather than pay the remaining $1 million on its grandfather's pledge. Even though Armand had spent his final years recommitting himself to the Jewish faith, he didn't live to celebrate a belated bar mitzvah for himself in his 92nd year. Michael began redirecting the Hammer Foundation's funds to Christian groups like Jews for Jesus and Italy for Christ. Gosh, this is a lot longer than I thought it was. I read it earlier, but I don't want to sit on here and read to you guys. So let me do this.
We could give them the link and they can dig themselves too.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the link, but let's get into what Armie did. So so some of these past girlfriends are posting texts and things, and she's saying that he would send them texts and Instagram posts and things like that. He had a secret Instagram account where he talked about bondage and cannibalism and really really degrading things for a woman to receive. So his claims are that they're bullshit and they're vicious and spurious online attacks. The accusations keep coming in January 2021, including from a woman named Courtney, who told Page Six that she had dated Hammer for several months in 2020. She said during that time he told her he wanted to break her rib and barbecue and eat it. She said he was drinking and doing drugs all the time. Let's see. At this time, his agents, like, remember we were talking about with Anne Heche and like watching over people that have mental health histories. He was having to take random drug tests under contracts, which would be, normal. And he was bragging to this girl that DMT, the hallucinogen DMT, didn't turn up in his drugs. Like, so he's beating the drug test. He's very proud of that. One post on the supposed secret Hammer account also alleged a sexual relationship with Miss Kamen, leading Hammer to publicly apologize and state he was not referring to the Miss Kamen of the pageant world. Let's see. Another rumor is that during a relationship, Hammer branded a woman's skin with his initial and sexually coerced her. He also alleged he sent her a message containing photos of her tied up that she didn't know had existed. This is going to be a good docuseries, and I want you guys to watch it. But I think what I lost in trying to read you this article is that in his family, every generation has somebody that could be considered a psychopath, somebody that has murdered somebody. All the men in his family have deep psychological problems. And apparently he does too. And he was out for a long time running around Hollywood. I mean, people don't just start doing this. This is what I want to say. People don't just start doing this. He's been doing this for a long time. He's been an actor on the scene since, I don't know, if you want to go back to TV days, that's earlier, but let's just say 2013, 2014. he had 6 good years before the pandemic when everybody was locked up and things became a little bit more obvious, right?
Right. Do you think maybe because his family was so wealthy and so well known, that the women he had been, fooling around with and doing these things to, they didn't come out and say anything because they were afraid of how powerful his family was? Because if you're saying he's always been doing it, then there has to be
I
women in the
think,
past who
I
have
think
been abused.
I think they've been paid off. There's a history of paying
Oh,
off.
okay.
I mean, think about the his. So what would it have been? One of his uncles killed a man in his apartment, and for $500,000, it got turned into, whether that was the family or whoever, it got turned into, manslaughter and no big deal.
Hey, these people with money, they think they can just do whatever.
Yeah, yeah. There was a. I'm really upset because there was. I'll be honest with you guys. When I pulled up the Vanity Fair thing, um, let's see. It was the wrong article, and I realized it when it started going on way too long. And I was like, no, I made a mistake.
I realized at page 50, I was like, I don't think this is it.
No, I was like, no, no, no. I don't want to do this. So it's going to be a 3-part thing. It's called House of Hammer. It's a docuseries. Let's see, where is it on here? Give me a second here. Of course, his representation has said that any sex he's had with any women has been prearranged and was consensual. And I kind of laughed at prearranged. I was like, really? Like, Mr. Hollywood was like, you know, um, let's see.
So is he saying that all the sexual encounters were like lined up for him, or?
Well,
Or
he's saying they were consensual. He called somebody up and like basically said, like, do you want to come over and have sex with me? Or like, he went through like what they tell you when you're a freshman in college. Like they tell everybody like, is it okay if I kiss you? Can I hold your hand? Can I button your butt? Like you're supposed to get like a yes at every step, and if you don't, it's not consensual.
oh my
So
God. I mean, I get it because of the consent thing, but it's sort of a little awkward. You'd be like, no, I was going to do something. I was like, no,
yeah.
we're not going there.
Yeah. So let's see. It says in March 2021, a woman came forward in a virtual press conference with allegations that Hammer violently raped her in 2017. The woman identified herself as Effie, which was the same name used on an Instagram account where the first allegations were posted. She is being represented by Gloria Allred. And so there's that. Apparently, she was sexually assaulted many, many times. Also, in March, Vanity Fair published a detailed article on Hammer's family, which included allegations that his grandfather had killed a man. The magazine later wrote in May that sources said the actor checked into a Florida treatment facility to seek help for substance abuse and sexual addiction. Other bizarre rumors have also emerged of Hammer, though not of the criminal variety. This summer, people on social media began claiming he's working as concierge. That's a whole nother story. Whatever. That a lot of weird Instagram posts, people have turned over voicemails that he's left them. They're very disturbing. He talks about how I'm just going to paraphrase this. He talks about how when he starts dating a woman, he'll text her and say, now I own you. I'm going to come over and bite you. I want to eat you. I like to really graphic images that he's sending them, and he has a long history of this in his family, and nobody ever like really, you know, gets treatment for it. So again, you know, I mean, it's, I don't know if it's more common in Hollywood. I think, you know, my mom and I talk about this a lot. I think anytime somebody has an incredible artistic ability, there's like this thing that goes hand in hand with a creative brain. Like sometimes it takes a little crazy, you know, and it's just
There's a
matter,
payoff on the other side. Yeah.
right. It's just a matter of how you handle it. And so, if he's found to be like, if charges are brought and everything's filed and he is found to be guilty of some of these things, which can be pretty severe, then, and he's evaluated and we find out that he's a psychopath or you know, has some sort of things, like how does all that work? How do you feel about that? Because me personally, I have to tell you that, like, I feel terrible that your brain doesn't work like everybody else, and I want you to be out here with us, but you got to follow the rules like everybody else. And if you start eating people and beating people and sexually abusing people, then you can't function in society and you have to go to jail.
Yeah, I feel like that cannibal stuff and the breaking of the ribs and wanting to eat their flesh and things like that, if you honestly feel that way, I don't think that's a case of I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. I think that's more of a case of maybe you need some help. Like
Well,
it's not like we're like, oh, did you go to the cannibal fetish convention down the road? Like, you know,
right.
and I know it's pretty niche, but they had 20,000 people this year. Like, it doesn't happen.
No. Well, the thing is, if you can't follow the rules of society, then you can't be part of it. And so, are we going to have to go back to mental institutions and warehousing of people, or you know, I don't know, but I struggle with it sometimes. Like I feel really bad for these people because I'm like, clearly there's something wrong. They didn't get help. It went too far. Here's where we are. Now we got to be held accountable, not only like personally, but like in the court of law. And I can't let it go because you have a psychological problem. Because what would that look like? I say, okay, well, um, you know, it's not your fault because, you know, you think you're a cannibal and you like to beat women, and you can't control it, and it runs through your genes, and it's generational. You'll see when you watch the docuseries. I did a poor job, admittedly, lining this up. Sorry. But you know, it's seems to be hereditary. You can't help it. You never got treatment for it with your parents. You didn't seek treatment as an adult because it's probably so normalized in your family. It doesn't seem odd. It took you having to like marry somebody to know that it was crazy when she was like, oh, peace out, you know. So now you've done something, you're being held accountable. Like I feel bad for you. But if I feel bad for you and say it's your mental illness and then I excuse it, that means that you just get to run around and like eat people and beat women and sexually assault people. That's
I sort of put it with the like the pedophiles. Like, I think it's very similar. Like, we deal with them in the same way. Maybe he has to be dealt with in the same way too.
mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and Miss Peaches, you're right. Psychopathy is not a mental illness. It's considered a personality disorder. It's still okay. Maybe I'm not using the proper terminology, but it's still in the DSM, and it's still, you know, it's still a problem. Yeah, I don't know what his diagnosis is. I don't know who, you know, what's going on with him, but clearly it seems that there's something wrong. And
Definitely something in that family.
mm-hmm, yeah. Well, and you know, a lot of times you see it, and this is one of the reasons why that's a whole nother conversation. I can't do any more tangents tonight. My brain is like this right at this point. So.
Well, we can start slowing it down and wrapping it up if you want.
Sorry. No, it's
That's
not
all
that.
right.
It's like I don't, I'm not sure that I'm making sense, but I think when you see violence and deception and treason and sabotage and murder, which is violence, and signs of mental health issues and personality disorders and things like that, and they're generational, um, you have a little bit more empathy for the person, but on the other hand, it's like we can't just let you run around amok, you know?
No, we have standards and rules and laws in society. That's what makes it a society.
Yeah, because I mean, then you get it's just not going to work. It's just not there.
No.
It's just not going to work, and it's unfortunate. But I kind of, I think it's interesting that he was having a pretty good career for some time, and this doesn't just all come out one day. There's rumors, there's buzz, there's somebody's been at a party, he's bragged to somebody's seen the secret Instagram account, but yet everybody looks the other way, and then it comes out public, and of course he gets dropped then, right?
Yeah, it's
Why
obviously been breadcrumbing for a long time.
Right. So maybe what my point is, which seems to keep changing, is why do we wait? Why is there no intervention? Do we not care enough about the people that we know and the people? I understand, like, William Morris is his employer, the agency is his employer, but clearly he has friends in the industry. He has family. Like, it doesn't seem like anybody stepped up and said, hey, like, we got this going on and he's a little hanky and like maybe we should get him checked out. There's a way to do that.
They don't want to tarnish their own reputations, I think.
Well, people have to stop, in my opinion. People have to stop worrying about the image of their business or their church or whatever it is and covering up things for other people, because then we get ourselves in a position like this. Yeah, there are a lot of secrets in Hollywood. Yep. A lot. But this is something that I don't care how many millions of dollars you're spending on a film. If you know one of your actors is engaging in something that is seemingly ramping up close to like murder and bragging about it, like, where's the humanity in yourself? Do you know what I'm saying? I guess that's what it's not like somebody went, it's not like somebody in William Morris or whatever went to the police. And clearly these women were like intimidated, pushed off, nobody believed them. He slut shamed them, everything else in the world, until they got somebody to listen to them and provided enough
traction.
Yeah, and evidentiary value that somebody would take and listen to him.
I kind of think it's the same as the Anne Heche thing, where you have someone who has a known like history, and yet you're still laying on all this work on them. And we know sometimes these heavy expectations and full on. If you've ever worked in Hollywood on a film or anything like that, TV show, even some of the podcasts, they're full on. They film 18 hours a day. It's long periods, and like maybe that's not the best environment for some of these people because it's so heavy. Like it's too much for them.
I agree, and that's why I wanted to do these stories together, because I think they have some commonality. I think we see people that have a history and that begin to fall apart, and then there's no, like, it doesn't seem like, at least we're not hearing it now. As of, whatever date it is today, I don't know, Thursday, I know it's Friday where you are, but because you time travel, but as of Thursday, August 11th, there seems to be no incidents of somebody trying to intervene or get her help. That has not come out yet. And
Not
so,
yet.
and again, they're responsible for their own behavior, but at some point, it does happen that it requires an intervention because people cannot be responsible for themselves. If you are hallucinating and you think you're an alien and there are aliens talking to you and you're running around naked insisting on getting into someone's house, clearly there's an issue.
I think we'd have to look at what is the history that maybe we don't know about between the alien incident and the car crash, because it's been very quiet between the two. Has there been things that have gone on that just hasn't made it out into the wider world?
Maybe. I know she's still, even over the years when her name comes up, they still crack jokes about her. And like I said, her peers. And that's not, and we're not talking about like a celebrity roast or something like that. We're talking about her name comes up and she has ex-lovers that like, oh, that crazy bitch, or somebody that worked with her or what have you. It's just not, I mean,
She has a stigma attached to her.
well, yeah. Yeah. And now, it's like, oh, I can't believe that happened. I mean, you can't predict the future, but you can see warning signs. You can. And like I said, I'm sure that some of her contracts with the movie company, she had things in there. So they were looking for them. And whether, people just put them in there for liability purposes or they actually followed up on them, I'm not sure. But you can't, when you're at this level of chaos and out of control and you have a history of it, I think it would be hard to. Have you seen pictures of her in the last couple of years when she's not on the red carpet?
Yes, she looks very withdrawn, pale, just
Disheveled.
just different and very sort of sick, but yeah.
I found her to be unrecognizable.
Yeah, she does look very different from her glam photos that you see. Um,
And
so
she's
I
only
don't know,
registered.
where are her friends? Like she must have friends that are still around her.
I
It's
don't
very
know.
sad, isn't it?
It is. It is. So yeah, she did look terrible, Hazelnut. She looked awful. She looked like she was, not that there's anything wrong with being 70 years old, but she's not. She
She's a
looked
young woman, really.
she looked drawn. Her, like when someone's under the influence of something and their face just looks different from because they're not their muscles have relaxed. It's
She
a
looked like a heavy drinker to me, to be honest.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Um, but I'm sure there might be some talk later on. I don't know what her prognosis is, but I've heard people say, she was slurring her words and things of that nature. I heard tonight that it was confirmed that there were narcotics in her system, but could it be that she was having more like a physical breakdown as well? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I think Lux said that they found no alcohol in her system. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, I haven't heard that yet, but yeah, she was so impaired and trying to sign autographs. She was talking gibberish. Yeah, like who let her in public like that? She has an agent. It's unbelievable to me.
Where are the people who are supposed to be caring? If you can put $200 million into a movie, you can put 50 grand into some sort of help for the person who needs it.
Yeah. No, I mean I worked in a capacity where I wasn't necessarily so and so's PR agent, but I was the person on site when they were working with me in conjunction. So like I got my you know what I mean? Like so yeah, if I saw somebody and they were about to go out in front of 50,000 people or 35,000 people or whatever size it was that day, and there was something going on, they didn't go out. And I'm talking to the point where I worked with somebody that was showing beginning stages of either dementia or Alzheimer's.
It's very sad, isn't it?
And, and I noticed it because he was in his green room and we were doing call times, and we were like, you got a 5 minute, let's walk to the stage or get in the golf cart or whatever we're going to do. And I turned around and this guy's like walking out the emergency exit, and he's telling me he's going to the breakfast buffet. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, all right, we got to do this. And so, he did instead of doing a big thing like he was contracted to do that day, he did a table thing and a lunch with somebody sitting with him to kind of nanny the conversation so we could get through that weekend, and then it's addressed later. But that's how you handle things. You don't let people go out like that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see when the more details surrounding the week or so previous to the crash comes out, more of the timeline.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I heard about this too, Hazelnut. She says a woman was standing behind her videoing her on their phone. I wonder if this was a supposed friend. I have heard a little bit about this, and I'm glad you brought it up because I didn't want to bring it up. That there is footage around of her not acting what we would consider, I'm going to use nice words, neurotypical, and it seems to be the people around her that are filming her. So they're filming her, but not helping her. And I guess and then we'll wrap it up. But I guess my issue with that is some people can say, well, you can't force her to get help. If somebody's at that level, you can have you can have an involuntary commitment or a wellness check. There are things you can do. Yes, there are things you can do. They just weren't done, and they probably weren't. The saddest part is they probably weren't done for bad publicity, like you said. You made the point. They weren't done because they didn't want to make the film company look bad or the project look bad or anything else. So where are we now? But they had no problem making her look bad, right? They just let her go out because that's her decision and that's her accountability.
Yep,
that's
what they do.
But now they have, a podcast that's going to fall into the ground. Her future commitments are falling to the ground. A woman has a house burned down and has lost her entire life. She has her physical life, but she doesn't have the things around her. Anne Heche is burned. She's got pulmonary problems. She's in a coma, and she's most likely going to face charges. In the case of Armie Hammer, big movie with Jennifer Lopez and a lot of big people. Whole movie scrapped because of this. There's women that are going through intense therapy, are scared. I mean, they're claiming it was like American Psycho. It was straight out of a Bret Easton Ellis book. And nobody did anything before. They probably didn't stop him then because they were like, oh, that's on him. And now where are we? Now we got a line of carnage. So when, I guess people are just commodities, and that's how they are. And maybe Marilyn Monroe had it right. I'm not saying suicide was right, but you know what I mean? She just felt used all the time.
Yeah, I think it. I don't know if you heard where they scrapped the Batgirl movie last week.
Mm-hmm.
$100 million or $200 million movie. A lot of people, a lot of actors and people behind the scenes, and people put hundreds of hours into this.
Yeah.
And the company was like, nah, we'd rather take the tax write-off. I think that's the mentality right there. That, see, all those people put in that work, a normal person or a normal company would be like, let's release it because these people put in their time, effort, everything. And they're like, nah, we'd rather take the 50 mil tax write-off.
It's crazy.
It's just a commodity.
Apparently, it's absolutely horrifying. I was looking for one other thing, but I can't find it. All right, so I'll go ahead. I have about 5 different articles. I'll go ahead and as soon as we're done here, I'll make sure I cut and paste them into the description because they're not there at this time. They will be in just a few minutes. Do you have any final thoughts for tonight? I know today was like a little bit heavier than we usually do, but you know,
It was like true crime, somewhat light.
right? Yes.
Final thoughts. I was going to talk about the two sisters. There is more information coming out, but I think we'll leave it for Tuesday's show.
Okay.
I mean, I will do a longer segment on it. But
Okay.
you know how last week we said, oh, if it is a no longer living situation, that it'll probably just die away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, it seems to be there's issues there. So
Well,
um,
I'm glad it's not getting buried and somebody's just not accepting, like what it seems like people want them to accept.
no, there's definitely some interesting issues there that maybe that's why the police are leaking little bits of information here and there. They're maybe they're trying to get, they're fishing. They're trying to, throw the line out and see if
Yes.
someone will come to them. Because I really think the police don't actually know a lot about what's going on here. And I think they're hoping someone will bite the line and come and talk to them because there's a couple of weird things that don't really stack up here. And we'll go more into it on Tuesday. But other than that,
Okay.
thanks for having us, everyone. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. And you never know. No promises. Every once in a while we might pop in on the weekend. And if we do, it'd be great to see you there. If you're watching it on the replay, thank you so much. If you're new here, please hit, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. If you want to see us again, and we hope you do, please hit subscribe. We're really, really, really trying to work hard to get to 500 subscribers. We're slow growing, but we're okay with that because the people that are here in the beginning are going to be like the core group, but it's always going to be a welcoming group. And we're just looking forward to building and growing this channel with you. And again, if it's your first time, today was a little bit heavier than usual. Most of the time, we're a little bit more like what Ping and I like to call true crime light. Today, we were maybe like fat free. I don't know. I don't know what we
We were
were.
like half and half tonight.
I like it. So, on that note, see you later, alligators. Good night, Ping.
Good night, Aimee. Good night, everyone.